Have you ever wondered what happened to Rouserman star Chuck Connors when the cameras stopped rolling? His life had more drama than any Western, from an unexpected role in Cold War diplomacy to affairs that almost ended his career. His story is much more complicated than fans ever knew. How did a Brooklyn baseball player become a hero in the Soviet Union? Why did all three of his marriages end in scandal? What was the dark secret he kept hidden until the end? Let's look into the untold truths about Chuck Connors' life, his legacy, and the shocking events that happened in his last years. Chuck Connors was born Kevin Joseph Aloysius Connors on April 10, 1921, in Brooklyn, New York. He came from a poor family. His parents, Alan and Marcel Connors, were Irish immigrants who worked hard to make ends meet during the Great Depression. Alan was a longshoreman, and Marcel did many other jobs to help support the family. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood, he spent a lot of time at the Bay Ridge Boys Club, where his love for sports grew. Baseball was his favorite sport, and he wanted to play for the Brooklyn Dodgers one day. When he was 14, Chuck's athletic skills caught the attention of scouts, who gave him a scholarship to attend Adelphia Academy, a private high school in Brooklyn. He took advantage of the chance, doing well in many sports, including baseball. On the baseball field, he was a strong first baseman and was named one of Brooklyn's best high school players in 1939. After high school, Chuck was recruited by over 25 colleges, all of which offered him athletic scholarships. He chose Seton Hall University in New Jersey, where he played both basketball and baseball. In basketball, he was a backup center who used his height and defensive skills to help the team win, but it was baseball where he really shined. In 1942, he had a standout season. Professional scouts were impressed when he hit 2 home runs and drove in 6 RBI in one game. It was during this time that he became famous for shouting, "Chuck, it's me," while playing first base, which is how he got the name. But Chuck's college years were cut short by World War II. In 1942, he joined the Army and trained at Fort Knox. Because of his height and athleticism, he was chosen to be a tank warfare instructor, a job that led him to become took some soldiers to West Point and helped them become national football champions. While he was in the military, Chuck kept up with sports by playing semi-professional baseball in Brooklyn and even professional basketball in the American Basketball League. After 3 years of service, Chuck was honorably discharged in 1946, and that same year he joined the Boston Celtics for their first season. At 6'5", he played both forward and center and played in 49 games. He averaged 5 points per game and scored 15 points in a close win over the Providence Steamrollers on December 13, 1946. However, Chuck's basketball career didn't last long. In February 1947, just a few months after joining Celtics, he quit the team to pursue another passion, baseball. On May 1, 1949, he got his big break with the Brooklyn Dodgers, but his debut didn't go as planned. He hit into a double play and the team lost, but he didn't give up. In the minor leagues, Chuck played for teams like the Montreal Royals. In 1951, he got another chance at the major leagues, this time with the Chicago Cubs. He played 66 games that season and had some memorable moments. On July 18, 1951, he hit his first home run against the New York Giants, and a month later, on August 26, 1951, he hit another one against the Giants. By the end of the season, Chuck had 48 hits and a batting average of .239, which was impressive considering he was juggling 2 major sports. In 1952, while playing baseball for the Los Angeles Angels, a minor league team, against the Sacramento Solons, Chuck hit a huge home run that went over the fence and caught the eye of someone in the crowd. That person was Billy Gordon, a casting director for MGM, who couldn't help but notice Chuck's tall, muscular build and rough features. After the game, Billy walked right into the locker room and gave Chuck a job offer. His card that said, "You should think about acting." At first, Chuck didn't take it seriously because he was focused on baseball and didn't see himself as an actor. Then, a couple of weeks later, Chuck hurt himself during a game. The injury wasn't serious, but it gave him some time to think about things. Out of curiosity, he decided to check out MGM and see what all the fuss was about. To his surprise, they offered him a screen test right then and there, and they liked what he did. Later, Chuck signed his first Hollywood contract, which would change his life forever. Chuck Connors' first role was as a police captain in the 1952 romantic comedy Pat and Mike, which starred Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. It was a small part, but it was a big step for someone just starting out as an actor. On his first day on set, Chuck was both excited and nervous. He got there early and spent hours practicing his scene, which didn't come until late that night. After just 2 takes, he nailed it, and Spencer Tracy told him, "You've got something here. Stick with it." Those words meant a lot to Chuck, and they gave him the confidence to keep pursuing acting. From then on, Chuck threw himself into his new career, taking on every role he could find, no matter how big or small. Between 1952 and 1958, he was in over 20 movies. One of his most memorable early roles was as Bern Sanderson in Old Yeller 1957. Was a big hit and brought Chuck even more attention. He also starred in movies like Trouble Along the Way with John Wayne and The Big Country with Gregory Peck and Charlton H. In addition to his film career, Chuck Connors was a frequent guest star on 18 different TV shows during this time. It wasn't common for actors to work in both film and TV at the same time, but Connors' hard work ethic and versatility helped him do well in both for 6 years. For more than 400 minutes of screen time, he played a lot of different roles, which set the stage for the next big part of his career. While Chuck Connors became famous as Lucas McCain on The Rifleman, it wasn't an overnight success. In 1957, he played a father in Disney's Old Yeller, and it was his performance in that role that caught the attention of the producers of The Rifleman. At first, Connors wasn't interested in the role. He turned it down because the pay was less than what he made from other acting jobs. Producers wanted him badly enough to offer him a higher salary and even 5% ownership of the show. That was enough to change his mind. Once he agreed, Connors threw himself into training for the part. He learned how to ride a horse and worked with a gun expert named Rod Redwing to learn how to handle and shoot a rifle in a way that would look good on screen. He practiced so hard that his hands got sore and blistered, but he didn't stop until he got the moves just right. The Rifleman premiered on over 14 million people, watched the first episode on September 30, 1958, and were captivated by Chuck Connors' portrayal of Lucas McCain. McCain was tough but also caring, especially when it came to his son Mark, played by Johnny Crawford. The relationship between the father and son quickly became one of the most beloved parts of the show, and critics praised Connors for skillfully blending strength and emotion in his performance. Another thing that stood out was the iconic rifle. It wasn't just any rifle. It was the Winchester 1008. 192 was modified especially for the show. The lever was made extra big so Connors could spin it in a dramatic way that became a signature move for his character. This eye-catching spin was shown at the beginning of every episode. What made the rifle even more impressive was that the trigger was changed so it could shoot faster than a normal rifle. This helped create thrilling moments where McCain could kill multiple bad guys in a matter of seconds. The rifle became so iconic Winchester later made a similar model that fans could buy in real life. The Rifleman wasn't just about action, it was also about family. What made the show unique was how it focused on the relationship between Lucas McCain and his son Mark. As a widowed father raising his son alone in the Old West, Lucas's struggles were something viewers hadn't seen on TV before. At the time, most shows had two-parent families. The series looked at the problems Lucas faced as both a provider and a protector. In one episode, Lucas struggled with the idea of letting Mark go. In one episode, Mark had to testify in court because he was afraid for his son's safety. In another, he had trouble controlling his own anger while teaching Mark how to deal with his feelings. Their relationship felt real, and it struck a chord with many viewers, especially single fathers. Chuck Connors wasn't just the star of The Rifleman, he also had a big impact behind the scenes. By the second season, he was regularly attending writer meetings and pitching story ideas that would become fan favorites. Inspired by a confrontation Connors had with a zealous baseball fan, Connors also helped shape Lucas's character. He wanted Lucas to speak like a real rancher from the Old West, so he often rewrote dialogue to include old-fashioned slang. He also pushed for storylines that showed Lucas as a more relatable flawed character instead of a perfect hero. Connors also fought for episodes that showed McCain's moral struggles. In one powerful episode, McCain kills an innocent man by accident. Connors pushed for this storyline because he thought it was important to show how much responsibility came with carrying a rifle. Chuck Connors was also instrumental in bringing guest stars to The Rifleman, such as his former baseball teammate Duke Snider, and helping to launch the careers of up-and-coming actors like Dennis Hopper, who appeared in the pilot episode. By the end of the show's run, Connors had become so important that he was listed as a story consultant on some episodes and co-wrote the two-part series finale to make sure it ended. The Rifleman quickly became a hit, becoming the fourth highest-rated show on TV in its first season, which is quite an accomplishment considering how much competition there was. It premiered on September 30, 1958, and reached 14.6 million households, earning a Nielsen rating of 33.1. The father-son relationship drew in many viewers, while the action-packed scenes kept others hooked. By February 1959, 78% of viewers said they watched the show for the family bond, while 92% of male viewers aged 18 to 49 tuned in. Toy rifles, lunchboxes, and comic books were just a few of the items that sold a staggering $2 million in just 3 months after the show's premiere. The show also earned 3 Emmy nominations in its first season and remained a top performer throughout its 5-year run, even ranking 27th in its final season. Decades later, reruns of The Rifleman continue to win over fans. A 2018 MV survey showed that it remained a favorite among viewers aged 55 and older. When The Rifleman ended in 1963, Chuck Connors had a tough problem. His role as Lucas McCain had made him famous, but it also stuck him in the role of a Western hero. The show had 168 episodes over 5 seasons, and viewers couldn't seem to separate Connors from his famous character. This kind of casting became a real problem, and Connors was determined to show that he could handle other roles. So he turned down many offers to do more westerns. 8 TV western pilots in just 2 years after The Rifleman. Although he thought this would open up new opportunities, it actually slowed down his career for a while. In an effort to get away from his cowboy image, Connors played a stiff, formal banker opposite Doris Day and James Garner in the 1964 movie Move Over Darling. It was a big change from his rough frontier roles, but it didn't have the effect he had hoped for because producers and casting directors still saw him as Lucas McCain, even when he auditioned for non-Western roles. By 1965, Chuck Connors was so unhappy with his acting career that he seriously thought about giving up acting and going back to professional sports. Despite these setbacks, he found new opportunities in 2 TV shows that let him show off different aspects of his acting skills. In Arrest and Trial, 1963-1964, Connors played John Agin, a defense attorney. The show was ahead of its time because each 90-minute episode was split into two parts. An investigation led by a detective and a courtroom drama with as the lawyer. Connors showed that he could play a sophisticated intellectual role. Critics praised his performance, but the show was cancelled after only one season in 1965. Connors returned to a Western with Branded, but this time the story was different. He played Jason McCord, a cavalry officer who is wrongly accused of cowardice and dishonorably discharged from the army. The show followed McCord's journey to clear his name and regain his honor. Labeled had 2 seasons with 48 episodes and gave Connors the chance to play a more complicated and emotionally driven character than the simple heroes he was used to playing. Chuck Connors gave one of his most powerful performances in 1977 when he played Tom Moore in the groundbreaking miniseries Roots. The series, which followed the history of an African-American family from slavery to the present day, was a cultural landmark. Connors played a cruel plantation owner with a stark personality. Connors's chilling performance, which avoided any caricature or overdramatization, brought to life the brutal realities of slavery. The show became a huge hit, with around 100 million people watching the final episode. Connors's performance earned him an Emmy nomination, which was a rare honor that showed how versatile he was and how well he could play complex, controversial roles. In the later years of his career, Connors appeared in B-movies and made guest appearances on TV. One role that stood out was in the 1979 horror movie Tourist Trap. He played Mr. Slayan, a creepy museum owner who was surrounded by creepy mannequins. The movie had a rough start at the box office, but it later gained a cult following. Connors also played unusual roles like fighting aliens in the low-budget sci-fi movie The Daytime Ended. On TV, he was in popular shows like Fantasy Island, The Love Boat, and Murder, She Wrote. In the horror action series Werewolf, he played the bad guy Jonas Scorin, showing a darker, more sinister side. Along with his acting career, Chuck Connors' personal life was full of love, heartbreak, and drama. His first marriage was to Elizabeth Jane Riddle, better known as Betty, a model from Montreal, Canada. They met in 1948 when Chuck was playing for the Montreal Royals, and their romance quickly grew. Betty came from a wealthy family, and the two got married on October 1, 1948, when Chuck was only 27 and still figuring out his career. They had 4 sons together: Michael Jeffrey, Stephen, Kevin, and Jeffrey. At first, everything seemed perfect, but as Chuck's acting career took off, especially with his role in The Rifleman, in 1958, the marriage started to show signs of trouble. He was away filming and working for long periods of time, and rumors of cheating started to spread behind closed doors. Their relationship became more and more tense, and in 1961, Betty found out that Chuck was having an affair with an actress from one of his film sets. This was the final straw that broke the marriage, and Betty filed for divorce. Betty threatened to reveal Chuck's affairs if he didn't agree to her terms during the divorce settlement in 1962, but they stayed civil in public. Chuck's second marriage was to actress Kamala Devi, whom he met on the set of Girano. Kamala, who was born in Mumbai, India, brought a unique mix of Indian and British heritage to their marriage, which was especially notable in Hollywood at a time when interracial relationships weren't common. Still uncommon, the couple worked together on several projects, such as Branded and Cowboy in Africa, and their great chemistry on screen made them popular in Hollywood and with fans. But their relationship wasn't always easy. Kamala wanted Chuck to play more complex roles, but Chuck thought that his rough and tumble cowboy image was what made him successful, which caused problems between them. Chuck's reputation for cheating on his wife also made things difficult in their marriage. Despite their initial love, things started to fall apart, and after 9, their last movie together, The Proud and the Damned, seemed like a sad reflection of their troubled relationship. By the time Chuck got married a third time, it would be his shortest and most controversial marriage. He met Faith Quabius on the set of Soylent Green in 1973, where she had a small part. Faith was 33 years younger than Chuck, and they got married in a private ceremony in Mexico on September 7, 1977, when Chuck was 56. Chuck joked that they'd spent so much time acting like husband and wife they thought they'd make it official. But the marriage only lasted 3 years, and by 1980 they were divorced. Faith later accused Chuck of being abusive during their marriage, saying that his drinking made him act that way. Chuck denied the accusations, but they hurt his public image. During his first marriage, Chuck Connors' life was often clouded by rumors of affairs and rocky relationships. One woman even said she had a child with him, long-term affair with Connors in the 1960s, and said he fathered her child, though this was never proven on set. Connors had a reputation for being flirtatious. Actress Joan Crawford once said that he could charm the birds from the trees but couldn't stay loyal. His reputation was so bad that some actresses wouldn't work with him. In a famous incident in 1975, Connors was reportedly caught in a compromising situation with a young actress at a party. The scandal was kept quiet but was said to have cost him a lot of money. Connors' children from his first marriage later talked about how his lifestyle hurt the family. Jeffrey Connors in particular said that his father was always looking for thrills, and that made everyone around him feel bad. Despite all the rumors, Connors rarely talked about them. Near the end of his life, he said, "I've lived my life on my own terms. Some might not approve, but I have no regrets." Chuck Connors was never afraid to share his strong political views, which often made him stand out in Hollywood. For example, in 1967, when many in the entertainment industry spoke out against the Vietnam War, Connors took a different stance and joined a pro-war parade in New York City, which earned him both praise and criticism. But Connors didn't just say what he thought. He actively supported Republican candidates, including Barry Goldwater in the 1964 presidential election, which hurt his career. He once said, "I'd rather lose a job than give up my principles." In 1972, he was even encouraged to run for Congress, but he chose to stay an actor instead. During the Vietnam War, Hollywood was split, but Connors stayed true to his beliefs. He spoke out in support of the war and often fought with protesters. In 1967, he marched with U.S. troops, saying, "We're fighting communism over there so we don't have to fight it here." Many of Chuck's co-workers didn't agree with him, which led to heated arguments, including one memorable one with Charlton H. While filming Soylent Green, Chuck Connors didn't just talk about his beliefs, he actively supported them. From 1968 to 1972, he made multiple trips to Vietnam to show his support for the troops after the war. He was deeply saddened by how poorly the veterans were treated. He thought they deserved parades, not protests, and felt the country had let them down. This was one of the most surprising things about Chuck's life. During the height of the Cold War, the Soviet Union embraced the riflemen so much that it became one of the few American TV shows allowed on Soviet TV. People there loved how he played Lucas McCain, a strong father figure who stood up for justice. By 1973, around 250 million Soviets were watching. Even Leonid Brezhnev, the leader of the Soviet Union, was a huge fan. When Brezhnev visited Washington, D.C. in 1973, he asked to meet Chuck. This meeting led to an amazing opportunity later that year when Brezhnev invited Chuck to Moscow. He was a guest of the Soviet government for 2 weeks and was treated like a celebrity. He met Brezhnev at the Kremlin, and the two of them even had a friendly gun battle with the guns Chuck had given Brezhnev earlier in the trip. During his trip, Chuck went to a special screening of The Riflemen, and fans went crazy for his autograph. He also filmed a documentary called Peace and Friendship, which was shown on Soviet TV and was watched by millions of people. In it, Chuck talked to regular Soviet citizens and talked about how Americans and Soviets could find peace. Common ground. A year before he died, Chuck Connors had one last chance to play his famous role. On November 3, 1991, He was in The Gambler Returns, The Luck of the Draw, a TV movie starring Kenny Rogers. In a short but memorable scene, Connors played his famous character Lucas McCain from The Rifleman again, wearing McCain's signature outfit and holding his trusty Winchester rifle. McCain challenges the gambler to a shooting contest. The scene was only about 90 seconds long, but it was a hit. Fans were thrilled to see Connors as McCain one last time. The moment was made even more special by the appearance of Johnny Crawford, who played McCain's son Mark on The Rifleman. The two actors shared a short but touching scene that made longtime fans very happy. The movie got good reviews and was a great way to say goodbye to Connors' legendary character. Legend, in 1992, at the age of 71, Chuck Connors was diagnosed with lung cancer, most likely due to his heavy smoking up. 3 fans were shocked because Connors had always seemed so strong and healthy. At first, he kept his illness a secret and kept making public appearances. But by October of that year, his health got worse, and on October 28, he was admitted to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles after getting pneumonia, which made his health even worse. He fought hard for 13 days while doctors did everything they could to help him, but sadly, Connors died on November 10, 1992. His death was caused by lung cancer. Connors died in 1992 from cancer and pneumonia. His death was deeply felt by many, with tributes pouring in from co-stars, athletes, and fans who had admired him throughout his career. At the time of his death, Connors had an estimated net worth of around $10 million. His wealth came mostly from his successful career in television, movies, and sports, especially his role as Lucas McCain on The Rifleman, for which he earned a lot of money, especially during the show's prime. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, Connors was reportedly making about $25,000 per episode of The Rifleman, which was a lot of money at the time. This added up to about $600,000 a year when the show was at its peak, which helped him a lot with his finances. Chuck Connors later lived in a beautiful home in the high-class West Hollywood area of California. It was a large ranch-style home with a relaxed rustic charm that reflected his tough guy persona. The home had an open floor plan and large windows that let in plenty of natural light. The home had lots of windows that let in natural light and gave views of the surrounding trees and plants. The decor was simple but cozy, with wood paneling and classic furniture. The large backyard had a pool, making it a great place to relax and hang out with family and friends. Chuck Connors left behind a legacy that is still felt today. His famous show, The Rifleman, is still loved by fans and influences how single fathers are portrayed on TV and inspires future Western actors. Connors also made history in sports by being one of only 13 athletes to ever win the Olympic gold medal. In 1946, while playing for the Boston Celtics, Connors broke a backboard during warm-ups before the Celtics' first home game. This was the first time a player had ever done this during a game. Even though Connors' baseball career was short, he made a big impact in the sport off the field as well. In 1966, he helped settle a contract dispute between the Los Angeles Dodgers and 2 of their star pitchers, Sandy Koufax and Don Mattingly. Koufax and Don Dale. This important event in baseball history helped give players more power in future contract negotiations, solidifying Connors' place not only as a star athlete but also as a trailblazer in sports history. That's all we have for you now. If you liked the video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, don't forget to watch the next video. You'll love it.